So I just want to say 10 o'clock Saturday morning and I had to do the full makeup deal. I just couldn't bring myself to put my contacts in because they hurt.
So no joke, I have a chat with a couple of friends of mine and I was like, podcasting is hard because sometimes it's about you're running around trying to get shit done. Sometimes you have freaking purple eyeshadow on at 10 a.m. And by the way, it's not like a party day or anything. We're not going anywhere after this. This is just how we're living life.
Well, okay, to be fair, if this was not a podcast and you weren't videotaping me on a Saturday,
Fair.
I would not have done all this on a Saturday. Y'all, if you guys are coming over today, I'm going to put my hair in a ponytail because if not, the baby's going to just, hold on to my hair the whole time.
That's why I'm a big fan of the clips.
And I usually don't wear makeup in full. I could get some chapstick and some mascara if I'm staying at home.
Nope, I do full makeup every day. It's ridiculous. So we're going to start with welcome back to the Can You Say That podcast, conversations I have with my mom. Before we get super started, I'm going to go ahead and say now, go ahead and like, subscribe, all the YouTubey things, comment, share with your friends, whatever. It helps us out a lot if you do that and actually gets the video out to more people. So,
and it's also how you want to convince me to keep doing this.
Pretty much. If you guys don't like and subscribe, she will not continue to do this. So I need you guys to do that for me. Do that as a favor to me. So we're actually doing, normally I actually pick the basis of our podcast, whatever that's going to be. You picked today's.
Yes.
You heard a quote. You're going to have to read it off because I don't know it, but you heard a quote and you were like, that's it. That's my kid and me. Roll with it.
So for my 45th birthday,
okay,
I did 45 quotes that are my life so far.
That's right.
So I did one for like 35, 36, something like that. I did something about like that with 40. And I did it at 45. Quotes I found that are my life so far.
Okay.
And one of my favorites that I found, Helen Mirren, who is amazing. Oh, I love her.
She's so beautiful.
She has this quote where she says, women have got to stop being polite. If I ever had children, which I don't, the first thing I'd teach a girl of mine is the words, fuck off. Now, understanding you're going to have to bleep that, but that's what I wrote. And when I wrote it, I was like, mission accomplished. I did teach the girl of mine to use the F off all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to apologize to you and production right now because I guarantee I'm going to cuss more than one time. So sorry, production.
So sorry, production.
So that'll be tough for me. But I did. That was a mission accomplished. I won't say that I set out to teach you that.
Really?
I don't. It wasn't a cognitive thought about, I want to teach my daughter to tell the world that, they can kiss your ass.
Really, though?
It wasn't. Okay. It was one of those things where you learned partially by osmosis, partially on necessity, and partially because as I have changed and grown and matured in my own life, my parenting has changed. As you've grown, my parenting has changed. It has to.
It does.
And there were things to teach you to be polite when you were little is different, than it is. There's a huge difference between teaching your 3-year-old to say, you don't have to go hug, the Uncle Joe.
Whoever, great aunt, whomever.
But you have to say hello. But, if she tries to reach and hug you and give you a big old kiss, you don't have to do that. You can say, no, thank you.
Your body is your own. Boundaries exist.
And that was way before the body was your own movement. I always thought it was totally inappropriate to be like, no, this is some random person that you've never met before. You'll never see again. And you need to let them suck your face, the edge of your face and be like, oh, you're so cute. No, I don't have to do that.
That is really weird to me that people have that. I know that other families have stuff like that where it is like the dynamic is weird.
No, it is. It's expected. And I feel like you needed to know how to walk up and say hello. You needed to put your hand out and shake their hand. You needed to be polite. But it was okay to say no. So that's how it started when you were little. So it's not like you would yell at people when you were really small to F off and run away from them.
Really? Because that does kind of feel like a vibe.
You didn't. You were actually an incredibly polite child.
What happened?
I don't know. We used to go to those conferences and they would talk about how amazing and you were just the most polite, well-behaved kid. And we would be like, I'm sorry, is that the child who just went at me when I asked her to do something?
Not even planned, but I just rolled my eyes as you said that, not really thinking about it.
That was one of the things where I liked her approach, which was women were taught for a lot of years. Now, I would say my generation was the first one that kind of started getting changed what they were taught because our mothers are the ones that went for all the women's rights. And the first time women were the massive breadwinners. When they were massive breadwinners and they were starting to make choices of their own for themselves and they were really, truly, that was the first generation that demanded equality and to be viewed in the whole world as equals.
I don't feel like that's 100% true because it's just, I think, a progression. Because like in the 1920s, 1910s,
they had some.
They had some and they started pushing for some.
They did. But I think what happened is that last generation was the first one that went, so we are going to take all these things all these women did for all these years.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to add them up and we're going to make one massive societal push. Because if you think about it, in the 20s, there was a lot of women who still were not for us voting. And I'm just going to vote with what my husband said. And we joked around about, I don't know if you remember when you were really small and we watched Mary Poppins and she was talking about the Votes for Women song. And then when she said, Mr. Banks.
Song. It is my favorite song now. As an adult, the whole, we agree, although we love men individually, we agree as a group, they're rather stupid. And I have to say, I've never felt something more.
So, okay, I actually don't agree with the men are stupid as a group. I don't. But
I can say my husband is a literal genius, but if you put him with his brothers, they all collectively have the IQ of a napkin. I think when you put them
collectively together, sometimes they make stupid decisions. That is 100%. And and their testosterone challenges each other to make worse stupid decisions. I mean, think about it, right? The tattoo that says, oh my gosh, I just
my dad has a tattoo that says something to the effect of like,
your body says you can't do this, boy,
but your pride says,
oh yes you can.
Like a Toby Keith song.
It is.
Yeah.
You cannot. You're 45 years old. You cannot. But that's those kind of things. Wait, we're getting
super off topic, but
that is where that was one of the first times I remember when she said, oh well, you know how Mr. Banks feels about this, we need to put all this stuff away. So she runs and hides and puts away all the Votes for Women stuff. And you were probably about 8 when the first time, even though you'd seen the movie 1,000 times.
I love that movie.
That you came to me and you were like, why would you put it away? And I had to explain that so many women were doing this against their husband's wishes and without their husband's permission or consent or whatever. And that just was very intriguing to you. Although considering your childhood, it didn't seem that far-fetched.
No, because I grew up in a really... we'll definitely get into this more in depth, but like trigger warning, I grew up in an abusive household. And although it did not start out that way, as most of them do not, it did end that way. And part of that was a pretty immense amount of control on my father's side. So looking back,
just for clarification.
Yeah.
Your father and the person you refer to as your dad,
two different people,
are not the same person. So before y'all talk about I need to leave him or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. Already done. Mission accomplished there as well.
Her father and her biological father and I are divorced.
Yep.
Her dad, she talks about, currently has the baby.
Actually has my kid.
While we're doing this.
They're watching a movie right now.
So, yeah, I'm sure. But so one of the things I liked about that, though, that was one of those things with that movie was one of the first times you were like, why would you not just tell your husband you were doing that? And yet it made sense to you that they wouldn't.
I just leave the house now and don't tell my husband sometimes. I'm just like, I'm good. Bye.
But those were all things that as an entire generation influenced the next one and the next one and the next one. So by the time you got to me as a parent, I had kind of taken this approach with, like Helen Mirren mentions about, I need to teach my daughter the whole premise of that is stand up for yourself and be okay with saying no. And
which is something I think a lot of women as a whole, like societally, at least in the US, because we can't speak for anywhere else, we don't live anywhere else. And especially where we live in the US is not a thing. Women are pretty subservient where we live.
That's very true.
And like
as a culture,
like to the point that I will say stuff like, no, David can figure out his own dinner. And I distinctly remember
very odd.
The first time I said that, I worked for a bank still. And I said that in passing to somebody, to a man. And I was like, yeah, David will figure out what he wants for dinner on his own. That ain't my problem. And I remember the guy just straight up looking at me and being like, do you not make dinner when you get home? I was working till 8 o'clock at that point. I was like, no, I don't make anything. I don't cook. That was another thing. I don't cook a lot. David used to be a line cook or a chef, one of those. And so he actually does the majority of our cooking.
No, you bake.
I bake like I'm over, but I don't cook. That here, like, should have made me pretty much unmarriable immediately.
Well, it helps that you got somebody from out of state.
Sure did.
Because the culture wasn't the same culture.
It's true.
So you growing up, I made dinner 7 nights a week. I only make dinner now twice a week. And the idea of making dinner and being responsible for dinner 7 nights a week is so
absolutely not.
No, I'm not doing that. Y'all going to have sandwiches and cereal after day 3. I promise now. And part of that is my own change of maturity and the relationship I'm in and things like that.
And your willingness now to stand up for yourself.
But there is something So one of the things, though, is what it is teaching the boundaries. And one of the things that I tried to instill in you and in your brother too, that was one thing I did try to do across the board,
Right.
was the no apologies for who you are. I don't want you to be rude. I don't want you to be that person. So there's a difference. And I hate those people that are like, oh no, it's totally okay for me to treat other human beings like hot garbage. That's not okay either. But
Right.
just because you're saying, you know what? I think I'm going to skip that event. And people are like, what do you mean you can't skip that? You have to be there. I don't have to be there. I have to breathe and I have to die. And that's all I have to do.
The Morgan Freeman quote, and I love it. Like, it's a parody of a Morgan Freeman quote.
No, so my quote is actually, all I have to do is die and breathe until I do.
Yeah, I love that.
I didn't know that was Morgan Freeman, but I do love him.
There's something, I don't know
It's
the whole
ironic
quote,
because
but
Helen Mirren, that's one of the people she talks about.
is that how much she loves
How
Morgan
much
Freeman?
she loves Morgan Freeman. Anyway,
Me too.
but I didn't teach you guys to try to apologize for those things. I didn't want you to be sorry for who you were. Sorry for saying no.
Still am not, which actually
for
causes
saying,
problems.
am I, like we've discussed, the too much. I'm not sorry you're too much. You're definitely not sorry that you're too much. But I think that because of that, I also never gave you guys shame in who you were. And that helped build your confidence. Because part of the reason you can do what you do is because you are more confident, because you don't have that. What is everybody in the whole world going to think? I don't care.
That is part of like when we were talking a couple episodes ago about like body talk and body sizes. That is one of those things, is that because I make no apologies for the way I look outside of my house. I make apologies for the way I look inside my house because usually it's not very put together. But I don't make apologies for how I look.
But to who?
Usually to myself.
Right. It's not to David. Not to your husband, not to your family, but to just because you emotionally or mentally have a need to be like, okay, so it's all right that I did this.
Yeah.
But it's not because outsiders are saying to you, well, is that really appropriate?
I had someone ask me once about our relationship, about why I was like this. Like, I get a lot of comments of like,
I've had that.
Why are you like
that?
Why are you the way you are?
Like this. Yeah.
No, I just have straight up like, why are you the way you are? And I didn't ever have a good response. But one of my responses, I think, going forward is going to be, because I was taught it was okay to be like this. I was not taught that I had to squish myself into a tiny societal box in order to be okay.
So to quote Christopher Titus, have you met my mother?
I mean, have you?
That's what, when people say, why are you like this? Have you met my mother?
Yeah, that's very true.
But I got asked that when I first started at the job I'm at now. Somebody said, why are you like this? And I was like, because you're being like that. And it was such a foreign concept that A, that I got super snarky right back. And B, that my response was in a direct relation with the way I was being treated.
Yep.
And that kind of threw people for a loop. And they were like, wait, what? Do you know who this person is? No, and I don't care.
You won't talk to me like I'm dog shit. Thanks, though.
No, I'll pass. And I don't care about who that person is.
Here, that's
what I mean,
weird,
though, with
too.
that whole Helen Mirren quote, is that she didn't want you to be willing, or she didn't want women as a whole to be willing to say, well, it's more important to be polite than to kind of stand your ground. Now, I will say there's a trade-off, right? Because then you have the women that are the other opposite side, which I don't believe in either. Like, I do not think that you should believe that, all men are. I don't agree with the all men statements. I don't agree with the fact that all men are predators or all men or whatever, or, they're breathing, so they're wrong. And I don't believe in hateful feminism because I love men. I actually like men more than I like most women. I work in a male-dominated environment. And like you, I live in a male-dominated household. And that just hit you.
Now,
you never thought about that, huh?
Nope, had not.
And so I genuinely like men. They have less drama than women. They have less expectations usually.
I don't think that's true. I think that is one of
different, maybe different drama.
I think it's different drama because I think that men have equally the same amount of drama. I just think that we as a society are more accepting of men's drama being genuine problems. And I think as a whole, we don't accept women's problems as being genuine problems.
Okay, if your whole problem as a woman is like, she wore the same dress I wore to the picnic. Oh my God, get over yourself.
I gotta tell you, I haven't interacted with a woman like that since I was probably about 19.
But is that because, first of all, we've had COVID, so for 3 years you lived at home.
Point.
And now you live close to me. So the woman you interact with probably the most, aside from work, is me.
Also, you definitely wore the same dress as me, like not even 2 days ago. So
well, that's very different though. But that's just because we freakishly wear the same clothes, but I have the same taste a lot of times.
I will say though, like that, it was something that I didn't realize was so unusual here. I knew growing up it was a little bit different because we live in a very specific religion dominated environment and they have a very specific view on how women should be.
Or at least that's the perception, because neither one of us are part of the church. So I can't tell you that that's what it is. And I definitely think with the younger generation
That is switching
that is
a
starting
lot.
to change, because I told you I had a coworker who was roughly your age now.
Yeah.
Who very, very much looked at the world different, and his wife was 100% his equal. And we are
Absolutely.
making these decisions for our family, and we made these choices.
I have a friend who's a part of the same religion, and he has said repeatedly to me, to his wife, to everybody who will listen, basically without his wife, that he is freaking useless. He doesn't know what he would do. And the only reason he's able to succeed and function and do what he needs to do is because she's locked everything else down. She's also one of the most demure women I've ever met in my life.
Okay, so
she's so wonderful, though.
But that is something that's personality driven.
Yeah.
And I will say that I definitely helped you not have that personality trait.
I'm not
I
a demure
made sure
person.
that you,
No.
and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think sometimes it's a bad thing. There are times when you don't have to go, and we tend to do this, right? We go straight for the jugular.
Always.
We tend to be like, 100% we're going to argue with you about stuff that maybe it doesn't need to be argued with. Now, I will say, with some maturity and some time, there is a perception.
I definitely had to unlearn the fight to the death aspect.
And that everything's a 10.
Yes.
Because you have situations that are a 2 or a 3. She made your sandwich wrong. And you should not do the full on 10 level reaction. And I don't mean like people are like, well, you're a Karen. I don't mean any of that crap. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with me walking back up to Subway or whoever and going, hey, so my sandwich wasn't right. Can you guys fix it? We've had it happen. And most of the time places are like, oh, my bad. Let me get it. And so they treat you the way that you treat them.
I agree.
But there's a difference between being demure and not and adjusting what you're willing to accept. Because sometimes when they get your food wrong, you're like, forget it. It's close enough. I'll be okay.
Yeah, this is ham, not turkey. I think I'll live.
I'll be all right.
Right. No, I will say that being that way, though, made it very, very difficult to date, especially here.
I bet.
For where we live in Utah, so for where I live, I didn't get married till I was 25, 26.
Which was old.
I was so old.
Yes.
At
like 19, people were like, you're not engaged. Although
I had a lot. To be fair, I've been engaged a shit ton of times. Although now here we are. I actually just stuck with the one finally. But
and that's to clarify that, though, you and I have discussed this, that having a different appreciation and understanding now of what it really meant to commit and what it meant to be involved in the relationship. And you didn't want to be that with any of these other people that you were engaged with. They just seemed like a good idea at the time.
It also seemed like what you should do.
And especially here, which is part of the quote, right? Don't do what you should do what you want.
Absolutely. And so that was one of those things where I got married late. I had my son late. Because actually, I know people who graduated the same year as I did from high school, college, and actually went on and had kids almost immediately.
Within 2 years is pretty standard.
Year or so. And so this was something that it made it really, really difficult to date because I was a lot. That didn't go away. And I also...
No, it definitely just enhanced as you got older.
Well, and
it adjusted some, but it did not go away.
It didn't go away. So I was still a lot. And I demanded a lot out of the people I dated. So my husband and I have this thing that we jokingly call like bare minimum, rare minimum. And it's the fact that David does things in the house. I'm not kidding.
So dishes, cooking, I
don't do dishes at all. I haven't touched a dirty dish in freaking years.
But I have to clarify, that is not but there's a trade-off somewhere.
Oh yeah, there is.
Because it's not like you're sitting on the couch, eating bonbons and living your best Peggy Bundy life. While he's doing all this stuff all the time. There is a balance and a trade-off in there.
The kitchen is definitely like David's domain 100%. We designed it for me. It's absolutely David's area. But I demanded those things out of the other people. And so it really weeds out quickly. So you start like weeding through a dating pool really, really fast when you're like, hi, I'm not making you dinner every night. Hi, I am not going to, wake up and immediately put on makeup because you've never seen me without makeup. The fact that was something that weeded the dating pool quickly was hard. And,
I bet.
And it was hard too because there was already a limited number because by the time I was about 23, which is about the time I met David, a significant number of the people that were in my dating pool had already been married and divorced.
I was going to say, and some of them were divorced and coming back.
Yeah. But there was a lot of that made dating really, really hard. And if they divorced their wife or their wife divorced them, they already had preconceived notions as to what a relationship was supposed to be like.
Well, and you also have all the other things, right? So I hate when people refer to children and family and all that as baggage, because I don't consider my children baggage. But any decision that's made like that impacts those other people, and I cannot do it in a vacuum. So when you're dating somebody who's like, well, I have a 4-year-old, you're like, but wait, I'm not casually dating you and us bringing in a 4-year-old into anything. There's no reason I should be meeting your 4-year-old for at least this many dates. You know, we need to be dating 2-3 months before I meet your child.
At best.
And in this area, that's definitely not a thing. Mostly that also would have weeded those people out too. And you weren't shy about it.
No, because I actually, up until I met David, I didn't want kids. I'm going to put a note here that I don't think that meeting the right person makes you want to have kids. I just think that's how it played out for me and my spouse.
I think that as your own view on life changed, that's what made you want to have kids.
I would agree.
But I remember you did date somebody with children and you were like, this is really hard. And then when you guys broke up, we were like, you still owe the child. And you were like, wait, what? And I said, you had committed these things to this child unrelated to him. And that was something where you were like, I'm not dating again. I'm not dating men with children.
Never did that again. But there was something there where that made dating really, really hard.
So there was definitely some consequences to being raised with this F off attitude.
Yeah.
I know that
I dress the way I want. I always have dressed the way I want. And at that point I was not a size 20.
When you're really tiny, it's okay. And very few people have anything to say about it.
No, but when you're big.
Yeah. So the story we had just talked about was when we went somewhere together as a family, and we ended up changing where we went.
Like so recently we had too. This was like in the last
we had
6
a
months.
plan to go somewhere, and it didn't work out, and so we ended up going somewhere else.
Right.
And so we were dressed for the first place more than the second. And we went to go get lunch, and we went to the second place, and I was probably, I don't know, I guess to me it was pretty normal, but to other people it was somewhat odd, I guess. I was just wearing jeans and a button-up black t-shirt or button-up black shirt and a tank top underneath it. But apparently my boobs were showing too much for where we were.
Or do you just have boobs?
I think I just have boobs, but to the person in the room, it was the person that was like awkwardly making me uncomfortable or trying to make me uncomfortable. It was definitely that you could tell that they were like, this is you as a grandma. Yes, this is me as his grandma.
I realize
I do not look like your children's grandma, and that's okay. I look like my child's grandma, and I'm okay with that too. I don't fit the criteria in that regard, although I bake like a champ, and I can do all the other. I sing him to sleep.
You don't knit though.
I do not knit, but I was actually going to learn, and then I was made fun of about, does that really make me your official grandma? But,
I love that.
But that definitely, having that perspective of sitting there across a table from somebody that was obviously staring at us, they were obviously having an entire conversation about our family and about you could feel the judgment and them, screaming. They had like their inappropriate bubbles bouncing over their head, staring at us.
Here's the thing that I love,
and there is some consequence to that though.
Is that this is part of what I don't love about like the double standard in like society as a whole. I remember this. I was wearing a white crop top and like black jeans. Mm-hmm. By the way, it was the first time I'd worn jeans since the baby was born.
Right.
I was really proud of myself.
Right after.
So I was super proud of myself, right? Mm-hmm. My spouse, David's sitting next to me, and he is wearing jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers. And he's actually, to be fair, he almost always wears these headphones that come around the back of his head because it helps filter his noise for his ADHD.
So tell the truth. He wears those so he can just drown us out, and we totally get that because it's a lot. Too.
But no one questioned the fact that David looked, and he wasn't, but he, from the outside, probably looked disconnected from the family.
Unengaged, yeah.
Yeah, he was listening. He was on his phone and because of something else. He also does YouTube, so go follow him at Code Creature. But he's so proud of me right now. But he was looking at something for his YouTube channel on his phone, which is his other business, and was listening to something.
The baby was asleep in the stroller next to him.
Baby was asleep, yep. And my stepdad had the baby and was watching him. My brother was there. Everybody was there. No one looked at them. And
they were all dressed probably similarly. Jeans, t-shirt.
No one looked at them or looked at David and was like, oh, well, you're disconnected from your child. thought
Well,
bubble.
and I can tell you the reason that I was wearing long sleeves is because where we were going,
was inside.
I was going to be cold. I knew it was going to be cold because it was probably like February, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
cold
think so.
generally speaking. So it turned out to be a really nice day. That's why we ended up outside.
Yep. But I remember that, and I remember
Yep.
the woman. Actually, I do remember this distinctly because I came home and I told David about it because it really bothered me.
No, you came back to the table.
No, I came home with this other thing. I got up, and this woman flat out pointed at me. And I was super bothered because I already, like, when you're postpartum, you're already a little shaken in your body confidence. Not a lot, and I'm pretty annoying, so it was pretty quick for me to bounce back. But there was at least a little bit of me that was, like, a little bit shaken when she, like, straight up pointed at my stomach. Because I have stretch marks now, and they show.
And for the first time not for the first time ever, but for really the first time in a very long time,
Yes.
you have a stomach.
And a stomach, extra skin, stretch marks, and a
I
bigger
think you were
jean
still
size.
nursing then,
I
too.
was, so my boobs were huge. So I looked really good because my boobs were massive, my hips were massive, and then my waist was relatively smaller. But I remember she pointed at me and like outright pointed. It was not subtle. She just went like this. And I just remember sitting there and being like, why?
So here is where I know that we took the F off attitude, because you came outside. So actually myself, the baby, your brother, and your husband went
Yes.
outside. And we came back in. I went back inside when you came out, and you were like, so this is what the person was doing. And it made me feel really crappy. And then David was talking to you. And I remember actually going, oh, well, if you want to make a scene, I'll make a scene. I don't care. So in the restaurant, you came outside, you were upset.
I was pretty upset, yeah.
And
Because I won't cry, but I was seriously pissed.
And I went back in there because 100% of me and my total mama bear attitude was, you know what? I will make you uncomfortable. If you think that she made you uncomfortable, I'm gonna ratchet it up with all of the F-offs I have in me. And I did, 100%. And we stood next to them waiting for our food and
Good.
made them as uncomfortable as possible. All because you decided in 30 seconds that you knew everything about my life, and you knew it was okay to pass judgment because I was not, because you didn't either. I was not dressed like your wife.
No.
And more power to her. If that makes her happy and she wants to wear the matching cardigan sweater and blah, 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 and that's her happiness and joy, more power to her.
And rock
Great.
that, because I have
Own
matching sweatsuits that I freaking love. So own that that's who
On
you're
the
going to
flip
be.
side, I am not that person 90% of the time.
No.
I own one cardigan, and it's a 1950s-esque style. I'm probably going to get more of those. Yeah, because it's like a little 1958 sweater to go with all my little vintage outfits because I was born in the wrong era.
Yeah.
As far as clothes go. As far as attitude, no way. I would not have survived in a...
But there are consequences to looking like
being the F off people.
Right. There's consequences. You don't look like this. Like, we don't look like this by accident. Like,
no, it's definitely so it was a slow evolution. So it was never a thing where I set out to be like, I'm going to wear black 90% of the time.
really, mine was definitely set out from not the color, but mine was always very much like, I am going to be happy in whatever I'm going to, like, I don't have clothes in my closet that don't make me happy. So I'm always going to be happy in what I wear. I'm always going to be confident in what I wear. Always like that. I won't move. I won't break from that ever.
But where you said the consequences, there are personal and professional consequences
They're
to having
massive
this.
professional ones.
So one of the ones I'll say professionally, without a doubt, is I am portrayed as the bitch.
Yeah, you're the pit bull.
100%. I'm the bitch.
Mhm.
I am the go and fight with if somebody gets argumentative with anybody on my team, they go,
Send Leanne.
well, go call Leanne. Well, you know what? Maybe you should just go talk to Leanne.
No.
And 100%, and I've told you this before, I get sick and tired of it. At one point, I think I know I told you. I said, I came home and I said, I almost lost it at work today. And I almost said, I am not a guard dog that you sick on people. Stop referring to me that way.
I wish you had.
But the problem is that is the reputation attached to because I will not stand to be treated poorly. I won't tolerate it. I don't care how high up you are in the food chain. I don't care.
Which I hate. Not for you specifically, but I hate that the response to I refuse to be treated poorly is immediately, well, then you're a bitch.
So,
I'm not a bitch. I'm just a person who won't let you treat me that way.
They're not true. There's a lot of times I am. And if you want to flip that switch, let's go. I mean, I can show you this is not bitch level. I will ratchet that shit up. Oops, hold on.
So I hate that is like the societal norm, though, is that if you don't just fall in line when someone's going to treat you like shit, then you're just the bitch. I hate that.
So that's the thing, though. I'm aware when I'm being a bitch. I will
also
ratchet
aware.
it up to bitch level at a whole quick thing. If that's the challenge you want to have, and you want to push that button, I'm okay with that. But there's a huge difference between, hey, let's treat each other like normal human beings, and then when you don't like the fact that I'm saying I'm not going to allow you to treat me that way, your dead response is to be like, oh, well, she's a bitch.
Yep.
No, but she's gonna be now. So let's go.
So this is my favorite part of that is that, obviously you were my mom. So growing up, you were the person that had to discipline me towards my later years.
Yep.
All of that. So when people say stuff like that, it cracks me up because I'm like, has she ever yelled at you? Because if she has, then you have the right to call her that. But if she hasn't, you need to sit down and shut up. Because I have been yelled at by you as a child.
Yep. Probably as an adult.
Not as often, because we kind of hit a point where we were like, we're not doing this back and forth because we wanted a better relationship than some of the other relationships in our lives.
True.
But those ones always make me go, really?
Wait till you see this. Watch.
Like, you want to see how this goes?
Go see this to her. See what happens.
Tell her that you don't care about. Tell her. Just roll your eyes at her and go, because I do that all the time, and just wait for her to explode because it'll be fucking hilarious. So I have to give you credit that
those are. You just did it too.
I sure did.
Okay.
No, it's all right. We'll leave it.
Fix it. You can't. You have to take it out. Go.
But no, I always want them to be like,
you can't be okay. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, I'm tired of being a bitch, and yet it's very amusing, or I'm tired of being classified as the bitch. I will say one of my coworkers explained to me, and I actually liked it. And he came back and said, it's not that you're a bitch, it's that you operate like a mama bear in all the time. Environments. And absolutely I was like, true. That is fair, because the things that I care about a great deal. And I will not, when people think of the mama bear, they think, oh, she automatically went for the throat. No, I'm going to swat you a couple of times first to warn you to get away. If you keep pushing, then we're going to have a reaction. Full everything, I'm coming at you. And you are unprepared for that.
See, this is the thing, though. I didn't have that up until 6 months ago. So I did not have mama bear syndrome.
I thought you meant the switch.
No, I definitely had the switch. And actually, I used to work a job in retention for a small locally owned company here. And one of the things that I heard all the time was the fact that they were okay with me working retention because I could emotionally take the fact that people were ripping into me every single fucking day. And every single day. But
so and that's something though we wanted to talk about. That was definitely another personal ramification or consequence you had of growing up with the F off attitude, is that they were like, oh, well, it's okay, she's going to tell them to F off. Well, after being told you were going to hell by every religion in the whole world,
I got that a lot.
You got to where I know we made a bingo card to try to give you a way to feel better about it, was to be like, oh, you got called, a whore in this language. Bingo.
Which really was, I got a lot of stuff like that because the company was not a bad company, but people don't read contracts.
It's the entirety. Well, and it's the entirety of whenever you're telling a customer, I'm not going to give you what you want. Customers are like, let me tell you why you're going to do what I said. And you're like, no.
So that really sucked a lot. And the only thing that I really love about that job and what I got out of that job was my husband, because we met at that job. But I was so done with it.
But then the secondary job after that one, you had the same thing where they were like, we want you to go into this because we heard about your reputation.
I will say my husband was the one in the initial job where we met. He was the first one to kind of come to me and be like, if you don't like being talked to like that, why are you at this job? And it had never occurred to me to not be the pit bull and stay and keep doing this. And so he was like, why don't you leave? Let's work and find you a new job.
But that's the balance somewhere between there, because that's why I said it came to me later. It did. It came to me way later because the initial perception that I had as a younger woman and probably well into my 30s was I had to be that way all the time. No. You couldn't let up. If you let up, it was you were going to start getting treated bad, or all these other things were going to happen. So you didn't want to let up. So it's until, that's what I said, that's probably in my mid 30s to the late 30s is when I realized there's a balance. Everything is not a pit bull response. Teeth, I don't have to be snarling and drooling and snapping at you from the beginning. You can start off like, think about the way that dogs react. People forget this all the time. You're Akita.
We should be calling it a Chihuahua response because I have a pit bull who has never done anything, but I've definitely seen some Chihuahuas be awful. Right? So we should probably call it a Chihuahua response.
No, actually, we had an Akita.
Yeah, we did.
Who famously never actually bit anybody. She sunk a canine tooth into the palm of one person.
After he messed with her for an hour.
I was going to say, and when you back up and you look at why, even when he told the story, he was like, the first time she kind of low growled at me. The second time she low growled and showed her teeth. The third time she deep growled and showed her fangs. And the fourth time she sunk her tooth into me. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're lucky she didn't bite you. So I had to figure out that you could start with the little low thing. You didn't have to start with the canine teeth in the hand. And you have to get there. I had to learn how to do that because there is a difference between it is well within my rights to tell you to go, fornicate elsewhere versus telling people, hey, you know what? F off. So there's a middle ground in there that you have to find, but you have to be willing to get to that end state of telling people, no, you're done. I'm not tolerating this anymore.
The amount of I'm not tolerating this anymore in both
or tolerating this at all, actually.
Either way, like in a personally looking at it when I was dating and into like when we started like planning our wedding and all of that, the amount of people that were just shocked by the fact that during our wedding, I was like, no, that's not an option. You're not going to do that. Thanks for playing. Was just insane to me. And
So it's funny you bring that up because it's ironic to me because, as you know, I got those same phone calls. Do you know she's doing this?
Yep.
No, but okay. People were shocked when you said my mom didn't give me a list of people to invite. I invited everybody I want.
Holy crap.
And people were like, what do you mean you're not inviting your second, third cousin from your dad's side and all that craziness? And I was like, I'm not asking her to do, and I told those same people, okay, you can fornicate elsewhere if you don't stop.
That was a huge thing that was shocking to a great number of friends that I have.
That I had
that I came to you and my dad and was like, hey, these are the people I'm inviting. Do you have anybody else that you, and most of it was mostly because I was like, maybe somebody I was much closer to when I was younger that I don't remember. Like, do you have anybody else that you want to bring? And you were like, well, obviously we want you to invite these people. My godmother was one of them. And I was like, she's already on the list. But because she's wonderful. Actually, it's her birthday today.
Yeah, but I don't know when you're posting this, but happy birthday. I love you.
We'll just send that part to her.
Okay.
But so
I don't even think she knows we're doing this yet.
She doesn't.
I haven't talked to her.
I need to tell her. I haven't talked to her. But it was huge to people. We had a very themed wedding. It was very small. And people were freaked out. I had a masquerade ball on Halloween a few years ago for my wedding. When I started telling my relatives that's what I wanted to do, I got one of two reactions. I got, of course, that is so Ambria. Or I got, okay, hang up, and they would immediately call
me. And they'd be like, do you know what this child is doing? Why, yes, I do. And let me tell you, I already bought my mask.
Yeah, everybody was, by the end, everybody was super into it.
And we got to where we did tell people, if that's, we had this conversation with some other things lately, is if that's what you choose to do, that is your choice. However, I'm not going to bend the rules for you. So your choices are, this is the operating rules that we have, or you don't have to participate. Fornicate elsewhere.
I can tell you, no one has ever prepared for that.
That is, by the way, my whole thing.
Now you're going to say fornicate elsewhere.
That is going to be my whole thing, because that way I'm not cussing, because it takes every bit of me not to say that.
I'm sure it does. But that is a huge, and like later on, a year after I got married, I had a friend at this job I worked at, and I was kind of talking to her about it. And she mentioned to me that she was like, oh, my mother gives like, I have anxiety when my mother comes to visit because I have to clean my entire house. I have to take down all these decorations that she hates, and I have to put these ones up that she loves. And I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to do this. And I was just like, what?
So you have to caveat, part of that is the fact that we are very similar, and in a lot of ways we have the same taste. So it might be differentiations of what that taste is.
I will also clarify.
But I would have any of this right here in my house.
Isn't it beautiful?
It is. And I would have any of it in my house if I had a place for it.
My flip on that, though, is your mother. Your mother has a very, very different style, personality to both of us.
That's very true.
We do not take stuff down for her.
Wait, I would clarify. So I'll let you finish that thought.
Yeah, but we don't take stuff down for her and readjust our decoration for her because she's coming.
I don't. Okay, so I would agree as far as taste and decoration and all that, but I don't think we have that different of a personality from my mom.
I think she's the lighter half.
We'll get into some other stuff, but but I don't think we have that different of a personality. I think that as my mom has also aged, she's figured out again, you don't have to start at a 10 all the time. And so she's learning to taper that down, or she has learned over the years to taper that down. But my mom was the original F off person in my life.
That's probably true.
And actually, so was my grandmother.
I say your grandmother, Granner, was the original F off.
But those were all, so I can't say that she doesn't have some of those same, I mean, how many times do you hear, I can't even tell you how many times I hear, oh my God, you are your mother's daughter.
I hate that phrase.
I know you do. And we've talked about that.
That'll be another episode, but I hate that phrase. It has nothing to do with you not wanting to be my child.
No. It's the fact that people assume that those traits tend to be ones that are
that phrase is only associated with negative traits.
It's a negative trait, right? So when we talk about somebody being aggressive or assertive or whatever, is when people will be like, "Oh, you are your mother's daughter,"
I hate that.
Because my mom is assertive.
She is, but she's even so though. She is not one of those that you change your house around when she comes to visit.
Nope.
The skulls stay up. You have plague doctors in your house.
I do.
You have dragons are your thing. So you have a ton of dragons
and
in your living room.
Out Edgar Allan Poe in the coffins and all that. Yeah.
Right. So you don't take all those down though when your mom shows up.
So I can tell you, I'm about to buy these candles for our stairway, right? They're the electric ones. They're black. Your grandmother has all the same ones around her house. Hers are just white. But the whole idea behind it is that she did that.
But that's it. But I'm not changing this even for my grandmother. I don't change the way my house is, the way my dogs are, the way I dress when my grandmother shows up.
No.
And even so,
but that's what I mean about she in that regard did live her life her way.
She did. And she still does,
she
to
still
be fair.
Does. But that being said, so I don't know that is a fair comparison. And I also agree that it's part of it has got to be coming out from outside. I did not grow up here.
No.
My mother was raised in a Southern family with all the Southern values, and then moved to California, where it was much more liberal, much more Democrat, much less
in the
traditional.
90s too.
No, so I was in the 90s. My mom moved there in the late.
Oh, that's true.
The late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
After high school.
Oh, that's right.
But so she had grown up mostly in it's not really a little town anymore, but it was a small town then.
Right.
And
it's been 50 years, so
keep going.
I'm not gonna put my grandma on blast like that. Just throw her age out there.
It was very different.
But no, there's something to that. There's something to the fact that coming from an outside perspective changes the way that you behave. I don't think how I am would make anybody bat an eyelash in, California, New York.
Oh, no, not true. I absolutely think that they would, because I still think there's a lot, because you have this odd little eclectic thing. So
what?
It's different because it's not the same. You have this odd little upscale New York, somewhat hippie Southern Belle thing, because you just take the parts you like out of all these different cultures, and you're like, I like this piece and this piece and this piece, and that's who I am. Ta-da! But part of that, one of those pieces, is definitely the F off trait of, I'm sorry that you're unhappy with my decision, but it's my decision. And let me clarify. Let me clarify. Not I'm sorry, because that's the other thing I told you is
I don't apologize generally.
I've taught you to say not for that. Apologizing for your behavior, apologizing for something that you did that hurt somebody. Those things are different, and those require apologies.
I don't apologize for that either.
Things like, oh, sorry, I don't feel like taking on this other activity right now. That's not going to work for me. I don't apologize for those things. You haven't had it happen yet, but one of the places that people are bad about it is when your kids get into school and the PTA and stuff. They're like, oh, we need you to be mom for this week, and so you need to bring in 28 cupcakes. No. If you need me to do that next time, you need to give me notice, and that is fine. And you don't have to apologize
for that.
As a
whole, it is unreasonable to expect someone randomly without any notice to just be able to produce 28 cupcakes.
Well, so it depends on where you live and what you do, and how it's tied to PTA. It wouldn't
be that unreasonable, because a majority of moms here stay home. I'm one of the only moms I know that work.
But they also have a realization that you still can't do that when you stay home with multiple children, and most of the area right here has at least 2 or 3, especially by your age.
By my age,
and then
3
you start
is
having
common.
The kids in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and that starts adding up. But secondary to all that,
no apologies for all of this, because this is.
But not apologizing for those things are very different than. I expect you to apologize if you're what you say is hateful or hurtful. I expect you to apologize for things that are cruel.
Hold on.
I expect you to apologize for those things. However,
I don't think that's all 100%. Here's why.
I had a however.
Good, because this is what I think it is. I actually think it is the fact that if I hurt your feelings because I said no to something, you do not apologize.
No,
and
I
you
agree.
don't, and you encourage people not to apologize.
That is different. I mean, hurt your feelings. Like I inadvertently said something that hurt your feelings.
Yes.
That I think you absolutely owe apologies for.
My aunt is pretty bad about, like, one of my aunts is a little more sensitive. And so when we say things, sometimes it does hurt her feelings accidentally because we're just so blunt.
We're blunt.
And we hurt her feelings. And we never mean to. She's absolutely wonderful too. But we never mean to hurt her feelings. But because
we are in a lot of ways so desensitized to that. And we're so used to each other's level of sensitivity that you almost find yourself getting impatient with people that are more sensitive. And that's kind of a weird balance to have because...
She's one of the only people I've apologized to in like the last 10 years.
But you're not supposed to disregard somebody else's level of sensitivity for you. But you also don't have to apologize for things like, you know what, we're going to skip dinner tonight. Or, you know, somebody calls you and says, hey, you want to go? I don't like your girlfriend. I don't want to go. That's okay. True. You don't have to apologize, but you can say, oh, we're not going to make it this time. We'll have to reschedule without saying I'm sorry.
That was something I had to learn, not necessarily because of not necessarily because I knew I was going to have this problem, but I had to learn that it was okay to just like tell people, no, we're not going to make it to XYZ event. Not
without the I'm sorry.
Without, yeah. So we have a big thing, and we say this thing all the time, is that no is a full sentence.
Yep.
And we almost say it like it's a mantra.
Yeah,
my dad pointed out.
Yes.
But it's because here, especially, and in our lives especially, it does feel like when we say no, there is about 17 other unasked questions.
There's expectations of the rest of why.
Yes.
Of why. But why? But why? Because and I hate the phrase because I said so. No, but it's okay for me to say because that's not going to work for me, and that's all that I have to offer.
I really love in Friends, there is a scene where they, like in the early season, where they ask Phoebe to do something, and she goes, "Oh, I would, but I don't want to," and she just walks away.
That is a lot. That is amazing. I love that.
Peak. And once you start taking it from that like point, and you're just like, no, because I don't want to, that already makes your life way smoother because that's it. I just don't want to. That's my whole reason.
So if you listen to like Helen Mirren talk, she's over 70 now. And one of the things that you see with that is that she took that approach of saying, you know, she wishes she'd have done that when she was younger. And she's very famous for some of the other things that she did do when she was younger, where she shut stuff down, where people would make comments or do things like it was okay. And she was like, oh, but it's not. And I'm going to call you out on public television because it's not.
Because it's not.
Because I want to. Or because I don't want to, or because that's not acceptable to me. And it is okay for women to be those people, actually for people to say, you know, F off a little bit more.
I do think it's something that is more specific to women because I don't feel like men have to deal with the same level of expectations that way. I can't say if you guys, there's, I'm sure, a whole other set of things that y'all are going through that I just can't speak to because I don't have those parts to be a man.
Not my, yeah.
But when we're thinking about this in our like final thoughts kind of thing, do you regret this? Do you regret teaching this?
No, I don't regret teaching you this. I regret not teaching you some balance of it because I think that,
I'm pretty dramatic.
especially as, well, not just that, but especially as I got closer to, you know, when I was getting divorced from your dad, I definitely will say that there was a moment in there where I had this epiphany moment where I was like, I don't have to be polite anymore. And so I kind of took that approach.
I remember you telling me about that way later.
Everything. I was like, I'll tell everybody to F off. I don't even care anymore. So I do regret not teaching you some balance in there because I think when that happened was a really vulnerable part in your life. And so you definitely adopted the, okay, it's totally okay to start off at everything at a level 10, you know, teeth snarling thing. And that telling everybody to F off all the time was completely okay. And so I regret not teaching you the balance and the buildup until later.
Yeah, I didn't learn that till I was probably in my earlier 20s. I mean, I'm sure I am with a lot of other things, but there are some things I haven't unlocked.
I don't regret teaching this, but I do wish I'd have taught some balance as far as when to use it also. So am I sorry that, you know, we joke around at work a lot because somebody will complain about something they don't like that I do. And I tell them all the time, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I don't have any.
Not true.
Which is not true. No, but complaining about stuff will make me angry. You know, people who whine at my job or whatever, they may make me angry, make me frustrated, whatever. The only thing that I will really take I guarantee you, the top level 10, every bit of fornicate elsewhere will come at you screaming, is if you attack who I am as a parent.
Yeah.
And by all means, bring it. I don't care.
Even now, like my brother and I are actual full grown adults. Our youngest sibling between my step siblings and my born siblings, I guess. My youngest is 22 now. 23. See, I don't even know. But that is your youngest now.
Yes.
Is 23.
Yes.
And even now there is still things where you're like, why are you gonna, like, what's the point of attacking my parenting? My kids are formed. Like we're not in our final form, but we're formed enough.
But that's still one of those things that is it for me. And that is 100% one of those times that I will turn around and go, listen, have you ever heard of Helen Mirren? She's this amazing person. Let me tell you something she taught. Because I think that there is a lot of times when you look back, you wish I'd have done this different. I wish I had said some version of standing up for myself in these circumstances. And you can't change what happened before, but it does, as you're seeing, it makes it really hard now. I didn't do it for a lot of time, for a lot of things, for a lot of years. So I had to take a really hard approach when I started doing it and really throw down on every single thing.
My dad makes a lot of jokes about that, actually, because my dad makes a lot of jokes that he missed out on the demure part of you.
I'm the good wife.
I'm the good wife. The traditional wife is probably more fair.
Well, so we joke around about the good wife because of the way that I treated your biological father, with the fact that I did do every 1950s-esque traditional thing. I set out his clothes
every morning.
Yep. His lunch was in the fridge ready to go. I made dinner every night at 6. I did everything in our house all the time, whether I was working or not. I was the only one who dealt with children and schoolwork, and
which we're going to address that in a future podcast, because the flip is super, super different. For the first 13 years of my life, it was a 1950s household. For the second 13 years of my life, it was a whole other freaking game.
Yep.
So we're going to discuss that in another podcast. But I think that the fact that you taught me that in the middle of what is a relatively vulnerable time in both your life and, let's be honest, in mine, because my parents are divorcing, my life is changing.
You're still in high school, which is hell.
I'm in my senior year of high school, which was really, really hard.
Actually, your dad and I divorced. You were in your junior year.
I was in my junior year of high school, whatever. But all of that was super hard already.
Yep.
And then, I had all of these things happen really quickly. And I was like, screw the world, because I'm not going to put up with this. And now it's something that I'm having to backtrack, because I do want to teach because I don't have a girl right now, I have a boy. I do want to teach my son that it's not unusual for a woman to stand up for herself.
Well, and you want to teach him to stand up for himself.
So, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Me either, based on his personality thus far. But it's really more about, you have to teach people it's okay to stand up for yourself, and sometimes it's okay to be impolite.
I love that. I think we're going to go ahead and end on that specific note, because I think that's just perfect wrap. So no, I have one more final thought for you.
Do you
have another final?
I do.
Okay.
And that is that that although there are other ways to probably teach it and other things to do, on the whole, I do not regret teaching you to stand up for yourself and to tell people to F off, that it's totally okay when it's warranted, that you shouldn't have to do it any other way. And then the other thing would be 100%, I'm going to just start quoting that all the time. Fornicate elsewhere is going to be something that I'm 100% using.
Bumper sticker. I have a friend who does those vinyl things, and she is so excited for us to start actually doing cups and bumper stickers, because she's like, I will put it on a t-shirt for you.
I 100% love that. That's got to be one, though. Fornicate elsewhere. I'm going to start using that in real life every day.
I love that. But that is something that, as a whole, you're taking nothing else away, because I like wrapping it up like that. We are taking nothing else away from this. Like, make sure that you teach your kids, all kids, but your girls especially in this day and age, that they do need to stand up for themselves, because unlearning that at 20 is harder. I have friends that are unlearning that and who don't understand when I'm the one in the store that's like, I'm sorry, she ordered mashed potatoes. These are fries.
Right. These are, yes.
I need you to correct. No, and and usually I'm not difficult about it, but I'm like, oh, excuse me. She definitely ordered mashed potatoes. I did that with a friend of mine, and she looked at me. She's like, it's totally fine. I was like, you said you wanted mashed potatoes. That's the whole reason we're at this restaurant, is you wanted their mashed potatoes. No, it's an accident. She didn't do it on purpose.
But you don't have to be a level 10 either. When you're like, oh, hey, this is a mistake. We didn't get the fries we ordered. We ordered sweet potato. And they're like, oh, that's different. And they'll be like, just eat those. We'll bring you sweet potato. And you're like, cool. But
But you can say
But
no and
somebody
have
has to be
boundaries and
able to
not
be
be a
willing
jerk.
to stay up and do that. Yep.
When
Stand up and do
you're
that.
absolutely right. There is a difference between being like Karen, right?
Right.
Or being like, hey, these aren't it. Can we get this corrected?
But
Have a nice
learning,
day.
you have to learn which time to do which thing. And that's a lot to that. And there's definitely times the F off is the most appropriate answer.
I love that. I think that that's a whole thing that just teach your kids that. Teach them that it is okay to stand up and say, hey, I don't want this. This is not something I agree to. I am not taking on that responsibility because they will thank you.
No.
Because I said so. Because no.
So I won't use because I said so, but just no.
No, because no is a whole sentence. So on that note, no is a full sentence. Go forth, teach your children that, conquer. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap for today. So do the whole thing. Like I said earlier, like, subscribe, comment, send it to your friends. That would be super helpful for us. It changes how fast this gets out. And like I said, it's a personal favor to me if you do that. So she'll still do these. So thank you so much. And thanks for listening to our conversations. Bye.
Bye.